So yeah, I think this is where we really can understand the difference between, we say something like mental analysis, where we figure if we can't chart it, if they're not levels, things like this, for example, if this level doesn't get hit, well, this is our technical analysis, our procedural analysis, our comparative analysis. Anyways, all being things where we make cognitive decisions on the charts to mark them like this, or whatever markings we may do. These are cognitive functions. These are choices we make cognitively. So they don't tie into a mental analysis as to where you would think of a mental analysis or MA or anything like that, or even emotional analysis. Like mental analysis would be how our brain intakes things like paralysis of the mind, choice blindness, those things that can affect us at a subconscious level. And then I think emotional analysis would encompass all of the things like, how do we feel after a trade? How can we better control things? And this is where I really like to think of this as logical analysis. And I think that logical analysis fires on both of those fronts, where we can say, how do we get more trades that are higher accuracy? So how do we increase the frequency of trades we take while also ensuring they're a higher quality of trades? This I very much see as what I would call logical analysis, or the analysis of the logics, basically the way we think and learn in life. So I think this is a nice blend of finding more trades with higher accuracy that also allow a direct path of how we can learn better and how we can see these things better. So that's going to be the focus here for the next few weeks, is diving deeply into the way in which we learn information. And why I like this is because it's going to give you guys and girls, it's going to give everybody the tools to allow themselves to become better, to make better decisions on a regular basis, and to understand why those decisions are better, why they're more impactful. Like if we make an error on the charts, how do we make sure we don't make that same error is going to be a big focus of what we do, which if we can reduce the amounts of errors in our charts, we can naturally just come to better quality of trades more frequently. Because if over 100 trades, let's just use some basic math here. If we take 100 trades and let's say 60 of them are bad, 40 of them are good. Well, if we were to to reduce those errors by half, all of a sudden, instead of having 60 trades that are good and 40, or 60 trades that are bad and 40 trades that are good, we'd have 70 trades that are good and 30 that were bad. So we're instantly having a path directly forward to say, how can we have more frequent trades that are higher quality? So we'd actually be taking the same frequency of trades, but because the quality is increasing, what would happen is they would actually feel like we're taking more high quality trades on a more frequent basis because the quality is shifting. So I think this is where we can really look at logical analysis as a starting point to getting to that point, or getting that outcome, or achieving that outcome where we're at the end of it, you're just saying we're becoming better traders. So we are going to be focusing on reducing the amounts of errors as a first step into this, which is going to be lasting for a few weeks or maybe even a month, or, we'll see how far we can go down this rabbit hole. We are going to be focusing first on reducing errors in our charts, right? So the reduction of errors from a logical standpoint, how does that work? So the first piece of this is we are going to have some homework to do. So we are going to, after these sessions, go and look at our, almost in a way, if you want to call this back testing, but I wouldn't really refer to it as back testing because we're not trying to take data out. We're trying to find the errors in where our charting exists. So instead of looking back and analyzing what was good and bad, we are analyzing for errors to remove from our repertoire. So by removing these errors, we're going to accomplish that. So that's going to be the one thing that we get out of today's session, is we are going to have an exercise where we go backwards, look at what we've done and see where the errors lie, so we can find out what the correct thing to do would have been in that moment. And that correct thing in that moment would then allow for you to say, okay, well, how do we remove that error, right, going forward? So that's what we're going to focus on today. And I'm going to use an example that I worked with Gamma on. So we're going to use that example because I feel like it's highly relatable, and I think it's going to be something that we really can understand. So I'm going to explain what had been happening to Gamma in this session, and I'm going to explain how we broke it down to understand, like, where could this have been better, and where do these flaws exist, right? So maybe what we need to do is delete some of these levels first, so we just get a clear view of our charts without all the extras. So we're just going to go and just mass delete everything. We can always remark this in the future. We're just going to go and mass delete a lot of this stuff here. So that's gone. Fine. We just want as little visual information as we need on these charts. And I think this is good. I think we don't need that. I think this is fine. I think that's fine. I think we don't really need this. Okay, you know what? We'll keep that one. And yeah, we'll keep that one. We'll keep a couple levels here, and we can delete that. It's kind of the same level. Keep that. And I think that's good. Okay. So part of a learning process, we can delete this guy too. We don't need that. Part of the learning process in life, the way that the human brain learns is very mathematical. The way we learn anything in life common reverts to situations and examples. Like our brain creates models out of the exterior world. So for example, you see something with your eyes, and it doesn't have to be just a visual learning model. There's people who are examples of people who are from books I've read that are 5 years old, and they've by the age of 5 they know 5 different languages, and then they're studied by scientists. How does a 5-year-old learn 5 different languages proficiently? Everything from Japanese to Spanish to English, along with French and maybe another throw a random language in there. Like how does a 5-year-old learn 5 languages proficiently, and who has no sight, right? Like there's studies on people like this all over the world. The point is that what we do in life is very much a learning model. Like we have an exterior world that we view in whichever way we interpret that through our senses, whether it's through sound and learning or whether it's through visual sight, and we build models in our mind. Okay. So that's the way our brain just creates the models that allow us to navigate life. And then so what our mind is doing is it's constantly filling pieces of knowledge by improvising how to map things it has previously missed. So for example, if you look into a forest, like I'm looking out my window right now, I can see a big valley and forestry. I've mapped in my mind what that looks like. And there's missing pieces there. Well, I know, for example, there's moose in this forest. I know there's wolves in this forest, but I didn't see them with my eyes, but I'm mapping them in because my brain is constantly putting in things that would make sense. So understand that learning is all about, and even in the charts with day trading, we look at something and we have to map what those expectations would be next. So it's constantly this manipulating and massaging of a mental module for us, right? Like that's the way our brain learns. And we use this information to make mathematical adjustments. Like again, I would look at my valley and I'd say, well, there's probably a dozen or so moose. So I would randomly place them behind trees that I can't see. So my brain, it maps this world of information it can't see. Right. So it's very much like the charts. Like we see a chart like this and we're constantly mapping all the things we can see. But realize when we map things, right? So like if we took the replayer tool and we do this, we're always mapping expectations. Like this is a common practice we do. So for example, I would say, okay, well, so there's a daily level up here. This daily level just got hit. So I think we're going to go up here after breaking out of this right here. This looks like polarity. That's the level we're going to hit. If that's polarity, it's likely going to create a backside daily, maybe right here. I don't know, but maybe it'll create like a local level. Maybe it'll deep dive it down to this. And so, okay, so fine, here's the daily polarity, but it's going to go something like this. It's going to break above this polarity. Well, that may be a bit too far out. It's going to kind of go like this, break above this polarity, kind of come up here. Maybe it'll go back test something like this while holding this daily and go up to this trend, and then it'll need to hang on to a 4 hour. So maybe it'll go to this 4 hour here that creates in that local thing right here. So maybe even it's like this is a 4 hour. So then maybe it'll come down to here. Like this is our brain mapping. So then I would hit play and like, let's see. And I can just even go to a 4 hour level here. Just hit play, that might be better. So we're mapping right now. This is what our brain is doing. It's mapping outcomes. Interesting, pretty accurate. Okay, I'm very good at mapping. And to be fair, like we hit replay on a chart that was full. But also, to be fair, I didn't have the perfect information because I'm also still just going off of memory. So what I've done here is I've mapped and I've used, oh, actually, look at that's actually pretty good. I wonder if this level is actually hit. I didn't even, like, this is something that's actually pretty decent. I was actually pretty good with this. And then I said it would hit that and then come back down to this backside. So actually, if we start to delete these levels, like how accurate was I for my mapping? So we can delete this one here. Okay, so I kind of missed something here, and that's good. It's good that I missed. Mapping isn't a process where we can always be perfectly accurate, because actually what we've done by mapping, just like the example of, I'm sure there's moose in the valley that I just looked at, but I don't know exactly where they are. I'm sure there's a test of a level here. I don't know exactly what it is. Here's the daily. It didn't exactly hit it. It went a little bit over it. All of the stuff that I mapped was actually pretty accurate, and that tells you communicatively what I know about mapping is very accurate to the charts because I was able to map this. Now, again, take it with a grain of salt because we already knew what was going to happen on the charts. But if I was to map some of these things I couldn't see, like I instantly picked up on this level to map this and look how perfect it was. And then I instantly said it would drop to here. Well, it already had dropped to here first, so it can't really logically drop to there. All it can do then is hit the hold level. So then, you know, we have the hold level here and it probably mapped to that hold level perfectly. Yeah, it actually does. Look, it maps to that hold level perfectly, which then goes up, which would then map to another level, maybe here or something inside of this. So we can even just assume that it would be this, like this is maybe some kind of break level. So it hits this first. So it goes up, hits that, map that properly, goes to here, map that properly. I didn't have this piece of information. So how could I have possibly mapped it? But this is the process of mapping information. This is literally how we do everything in life. This is how our brain functions. It's a process we use, and the name of it is called derivative thinking or gradient descent finding. So that's the scientific term, is gradient descent finding, right? So gradient descent finding or derivative thinking is the ability to map something that our senses give us, and we map that information, and then we constantly make adjustments to massage that model that we've created in our head. So when I drew randomly, that was the model that my brain created. And then afterwards, I came and I massaged my expectations. Like I moved the level from here to the break to that, now to this. And I've massaged the model. Like this is how all human beings learn in all aspects of life, whether you're 5 years old, whether you're 0, like brand new baby, 1 month old, all the way to when we're 90 years old. We map things in our mind, and then we have a process that we go through. So the important piece of this is when we map, we create errors. We have to. This is a normal process. We can't map to perfection. We can't use our imagination to get exacts. So this is actually a very organic process is what we do, is this mind mapping. So we map information, and the goal to learn is now actually reducing the errors that we have when we're mapping. So if we're really bad at mapping, we'll have a ton of errors. And this to me sounds exactly like what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a higher quality of trades more frequently. So by mapping, we're trying to reduce the amount of errors so that our mapping process can be more accurate. So this is everything we are trying to achieve, right? The mathematics of our mind make it possible to know exactly how to modify. It's almost like our brain is being supervised, right? So like our brain is being supervised constantly. It's constantly being supervised to say like, is this right or is this wrong? Or like I say in other lessons in mental analysis about how much gas you have in the tank, right? You have a certain amount of gas that you have all day long, or, you know, a power station. You have a certain amount of power that a power station can go and give you information, right? And through the day, you lose that power. So every day we have a battle between mapping information, reducing the errors that our mind comes through, and preserving that gasoline to map, because the lower power or gasoline, the lower amount of energy, I'm just going to say energy for simplicity's sake here, the lower amount of energy our minds have, the more errors that get introduced into the mapping, because we can't quite acutely create these examples. So like I looked into the valley here and I don't know where the moose are, but I know they're in there. There's 12 of them. The more energy I have, the more efficiently my mind can say, oh, okay, well, this one would probably be by the lake because they need to drink water. And there's not a lot of water in this valley, but there's like a couple little rivers and lakes. And it's springtime right now. So actually babies would have just been born. They would be looking for nutrition on a more regular basis. Their bodies wouldn't have the ability to hold on to as much. So actually now, instead of one moose, maybe it's a family of 4 or a family of 3. So out of those 12 moose, now we can account for 3 or 4 of them to be by a body of water. So now we are starting to reduce the amount of variations that could exist. So now instead of 12 moose randomly being placed there, there's now 8 or 9 moose and a group of 3 or 4. So we've taken 25% of those moose, we've put them by the body of water, drinking, because they have a family that's likely where they're going to be by. And moose travel in packs, so there might be 2 or 3 more that are kind of within arm's reach. And they travel in packs because they hunt. They have self-defense from things like cougars and wolves. They stick together in groups. So now we've actually taken half the moose. So we've done 50% of our job of mapping where these moose need to go, because 3 or 4 of them are going to be by the water. And then there's going to be 1 or 2 more lingering around with them because they move in packs. All of a sudden, half the moose are accounted for. So my brain has the ability to map that. throughout the day. Well, actually, the more energy I have, the more my brain can think, the less tired the muscle is, and the more I can go into making this mapping make sense. So this is really where energy and the way that we see these things, this is really where energy comes through and says, okay, how do we know how to start using mathematics in our model in our mind to massage this so that we can actually be highly efficient? Or if we were to say this on the charts, how can I now take levels and refine them into groupings where they make more sense than they would have otherwise, right? So this is the mathematics of our brain. And I'm going to go into an example now of what acute accuracy looks like. So what I just did with the moose in the valley, I had no clue what I was going to talk about with my example before I got into this. But I simply looked to the right and I'm like, oh, there's a valley. Okay, well, there would be moose in that valley. So this is completely off the cusp of my wrists, right? So with that said, I want to go into another example of how we now can take those models and refine them. Okay, so let's use the example of a hunter, and I used this a little earlier, and it's actually from a book that I read a long time ago, which is a great book about how to process information. But anyways, you have a hunter. Okay, the hunter is here. He has a rifle and he needs to shoot. Let's use one of these moose, for example, for no reason other than it's just relevant to what we were just talking about. The moose is here. This is M. This is the moose. The dip of the M here is the center point to the moose. This is the highest amount of accuracy. So if we were to relate this to 100 to trading, hitting the center point of the M, well, this would be 100x trading, hitting a level perfectly. Maybe this would be liquidation. Maybe this would be the edge of stop losses. So we kind of have like a box model here, like. And we could even say that maybe liquidation would be even a bit tighter if we're trading 100x. So like these two outer lines would be our stop losses. The center of the M here, the point that dips on the second, between the first and second arch of the M, that would be nailing a trade perfectly. Everything else inside of these is a good trade. So everything inside these bounds of the stop losses are good trades. Everything outside of, you know what we can even do? We can just say everything outside of this circle is a liquidation. So let's put these, just to simplify things, as our stop loss, and everything beyond our stop loss is a liquidation because we put our stop loss at liquidation. Okay, so a hunter's hunting a wolf, or sorry, a moose, and he takes a shot. And his shot lands way out here, way off. He has no clue. He's never hunted before. This is his first time picking up a rifle, and his shot lands way out here. We have two ways in which we can process this information going forward. We can say that, okay, and I think this is very typical as to what anybody would do. And I think everybody here would be in a very relatable manner. So yeah, I probably would have done the same thing. So we shoot right out here. Well, how do we find our target? How do we map information? Remember, we've never picked up a rifle before, so we don't know how to shoot. So how would our mind then map the outcome? How in mathematics, which is how our brain operates, by the way, is in mathematics, how in mathematics would our mind then hit a target? You know what it would do? It would say, okay, well, what's the distance between this and this? Let's make that adjustment. So they think that 37 meters, for example, would be a good adjustment. So they say like, okay, well, I've never shot a rifle before, but I think 37 meters actually hits this dead on. And 37 meters in reality looks like this. Completely misses the target. This is 37 meters. Okay. So our brain now has a sample, or it now has a model to work off of. This is now, and we're going to put the first example down here. This is 37, and I'm just going to put M for meters. This is 37 meters. So now the brain says, okay, well, I need to go and adjust 37 meters. Okay, cool. If I were to adjust 37 meters, which is the only mapping I have, we would land out here. That would be too far. So the second sample would land out here. It would be too far. So then our brain would say, okay, well, what if I went half that distance? What if I said, okay, well, let's go half of that distance would be right to here, right? That's about right. Actually, it's a bit less. You go right to there. So our first sample lands here because we went 37 meters. Our second sample lands here, which I'm now going to reduce down to just this piece right here. So this is our second sample, lands here 37 meters. And it would say, okay, well, like it looks like maybe half. Our third sample lands here. So then we're going to say, okay, well, what's half of this, right? Okay, so like, does half of this give us an accurate result? So let's go. And the brain would just say, okay, half of this. So where does half of this land? Okay, so then it would go like this, and it would say, oh, that was pretty good. But look at how many attempts it took to get there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 attempts to get there. Now, that's one way in which 99% of the world learns. The more unnatural but accurate way is you would go, okay, well, like, what's 5 meters look like? Let me make a small adjustment. Instead of shooting to try to hit my target on the first go, what if I just made a small 5-meter adjustment? Okay, so this is 5 meters. Missed our target completely. Knew we would, right? Like, absolutely crazy that we would hit this target at 5 meters out. Like, we shot so far to the right of this moose that how could a little tiny adjustment ever be something that would be accurate? But what this does is it gives the brain a model to map. So now instead of reducing from 37 meters, you can say, well, what if I was to do this 6 more times, right? Or 6 times total. 1, 2, oops, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at that. Our first attempt, we hit the target. Look at the difference from here to here. 6 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 more times, we actually hit our target. So actually on our second attempt, instead of being way out here, we were able to create a model in our mind that allowed us to actually hit a target on the second attempt. Okay, so our third attempt, what does that look like? Right? Our third attempt, well, we could just say, yeah, let's just simply cut this in half. Let's go to the halfway mark, or a little less than the halfway mark, because you know what? It just looks like a little less than halfway, or even halfway. Let's just equate it to the exact same equation that we used. After 2 attempts, you've almost hit this target perfectly. In the third attempt, you could reduce this by another half, therefore leaving it in here, and you would have reduced the amount of attempts it takes while having more accuracy the entire time. Because remember, on this first model of 37 meters, you had 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts before you even hit your target. You hit your target on the first attempt. So second attempt, sorry. So you hit your target on the second attempt instead of the fourth attempt. Everything else beyond that was just defining the accuracy even further and even further. So this is where like you'll see a movie like American Sniper and the reality of how you would see, and this is an extreme example, but I think it's also relatable because everybody's seen these movies where there's a sniper and they've got a spotter somewhere and they say, okay, you got to go 1 degree to the left and then go a quarter, just a smidge north. And it's just like these tiny, perfect little adjustments. They don't swing from this to that to these extremes. They make the most minuscule adjustments to understand, like if they shoot a bullet at a target and it hits like a rock, they use that rock, right? Or they use that piece of the building as their first marker. The piece of the building is the moose. They take their first shot and it's the slightest adjustment just to understand, okay, if I make this adjustment, what do I have to account for next to hit the perfect target? You see this in sniper movies all the time because this is the highest form of accuracy from the mind, logically mapping out mathematics, everything from mathematics and environment from a pinpoint bullet. How do you hit a target 1,000 meters away? You're using environment, mathematics. You're using every process that the brain can to think. They don't swing massive targets because how could they go from this swinging all the way out here to having an accurate model to pinpoint this? Instead, they would make a small adjustment, take a shot to see where it hits the landscape. Then on their second shot, be able to hit this part of the target. So maybe it was a shoulder hit, or maybe it was right beside their foot, something so close that they know the most minor adjustment gets them a bullseye. This is the way we process information in the world. Most of us, 99% of us, go for perfection. We go and we swing for the fences. We swing a baseball bat as hard as we can. Another example I used is if you're learning how to dance, you don't look at the end outcome of how a move is completed, or you're learning how to salsa. You don't look at a salsa dancer and be like, oh yeah, he can just shake this way and do that, and I could do that, no problem. No, you focus on, okay, how did he move his right foot? Where did he step? What little step did he take? All of a sudden, you've learned that step. All of a sudden, you can just move on to the next piece instead of trying to like move your hips and step and swing your arms and kind of jive to the music with your hips. You can't learn all that at once. You look like a fool. You look like Krusty the Clown on a stage. You won't look like any resemblance of a salsa dancer. And then you're going to feel it too. You're going to internally feel awkward and weird. But if you were to focus on okay, how does he move his left foot? He steps up and to the side a little bit, cool. I'm going to just step up into the side. Oh, and then he kind of like shifts his hips a little bit left as well, next. So he steps up into the side, shifts his hips to the music. It's like little tiny perfections that allow us to accurately pinpoint everything. So this is the way our mind learns, right? So if this is the way our mind learns, this is very synonymous to the charts and saying like, okay, well, little tiny adjustments where we can reduce errors are actually way more valuable than thinking about how can we hit perfect targets. So another example I would use is something relevant that a few people have gone through recently. And a few people have gone through this and they've gone like this. So we're going to go here and I'm going to show this example on the charts because it's a really neat example. So a few people would go, hey, here's daily to a daily level. Oh, cool. We're in like a daily down here, a daily up there. That's a really big range. Awesome. Let's go to our next daily level. So like, let's just take our model and cut it here because this is our model. Oh, cool. We have a daily level here to a daily level there. And so fine, we're using a model that's not necessarily aiming for the small pieces that allow us to have perfect accuracy. And the relatable thing would be like, okay, we understand there's a daily level here. What if we could find a 15-minute level, the perfect 15-minute trail inside of this right here? What if we could find the hourly, the plus one, minus ones, the perfect little things? We know the daily exists. We don't need to take a trade there. We know the daily's up here. We also don't need to take a short there. But what if we could hone down on the smallest module to understand how we can hit a perfect target? Wouldn't that look like a daily level? Seeing a 15 or an hourly level, wherever that trail makes sense. So wherever we can say, here's 5 meters out, here's the small impacts that can allow us to see the bigger picture to give us the perfect strike. Couldn't we then say the perfect strike, that moose is up here? But then if we use a small adjustment in the moment, we don't have to swing for the fences on the big level in hopes to shoot up here in order to reduce it down to here. No, we can see that the perfect target hit, which is our first bullet. That's our first shot into the wilderness when it hits that level. Then we can say, okay, well, what kind of small level could we target that could be perfect? And then it can go up to here. So this model is very much using acute information for this. Okay, so that's next. The next piece of this, you'd go down in time frames and you'd say, okay, well, here's the where's a 4-hour level here? Where's the 4-hour level? Let's find the 4-hour level, because let's use plus one minus one theory and find the 4-hour level. Okay, perfect. It's right here, 4-hour level there. Right now, what you're using is a model that looks like this. Again, it's still quite large. You're using a model that looks like, I would say probably to the bottom of the range. So your model is here now. Okay. But like if we keep going down and finding more smaller acute targets, we can see that we actually have like an hourly trend. So if we could refine that down to like an hourly trend, and then you have an hourly level here and you have an hourly level here. So you have an hourly level there. Let's go here. Let's mark that. That's an hourly level. This is an hourly level that was already tested. What about if we went more acute? And this is like where we get into like finding deeper and deeper information. If we were to get more acute, we have what looks like polarity right here, which could be back tested to hold the move. So like 15-minute polarity, which is also an hourly level, right? So you have 15-minute polarity there. And we have a 15-minute target here. Was this 15-minute target hit? Let's see. So we got a 15-minute target here. This is hit pretty nicely. Okay, so we have something here. Let's like make more acute information by reducing error. Okay, what about this one? Oh, this is hit as well. Let's go to the wick here. Yeah, that's hit as well right there. You know what we need to do? We need to actually turn down the opacity on this one so we can actually see these levels. So I feel like I can't even really see them. So let's just try to find this and let's just turn down that opacity. Border background, here we go. We're just gonna turn this down. Let's turn that one down to like 5%, and let's turn the other one down to like 5% as well, just because we're kind of running into like, okay, well, here we go. Let's go here, background. Let's do this one down to like 5% as well. 10% is good for this one. We can still see it. So like, okay, oopsies, we need to put that back. Okay, so now let's go and look down here again. And so we can kind of see this information, right? And it's like, okay, well, we got a 15-minute level. Let's look at that, right? Is a 15-minute level. Okay, that's hit pretty perfectly. What about the next level here? Okay, that's hit pretty perfectly. What about the next level here? Everything from this to this. Okay, so now we can RA this and just say like, what's the difference here? 11%. I think it's safe to take this level exactly as our next trade, right? And now our model, so let's go to a bigger time frame. Now our model looks like this, right? So now our model looks like everything from the range trend to here. So now our model is this, right? Let's take this one down in percentage as well. Go to this one. And this one's already good too. So now our model, we're using small amounts of accuracy, right? So let's just hit play, see what happens. I don't know if this is going to hit or not, but we'll see. Maybe the 4-hour level hits, maybe something deeper. I think that backside, that solid green is pretty decent. Oh, it actually goes deeper. That's fine. So now let's go and zoom out a bit. Let's go to a bird's eye view. So we are 100x traders, okay? If 100x requires a level of precision and accuracy where we have to make small adjustments instead of major adjustments, instead of going 37 meters, we need to go 5 meters to understand where to go next. On a model that requires such small adjustments with big accuracy, we should never be using these bigger ranges. Because actually, what we're doing by using these bigger ranges is just saying there's going to be more errors in our trading, because this is great for spot trading. This is great for 5x, maybe even 10x. This is great. This is a model that works because bigger levels like dailies, they have, like, look at this trend here. Yeah, okay, it respects pretty good, but doesn't always respect. Like, we all know that. Look at this level here, right? Look at this, for example. Look at this trend. Oh, well, that was a liquidation. What about this? What if we were to take this? Oh, that's a liquidation. So we've got to get out of the habit as traders in general to stop using a 37-meter target or a 37-meter idea where we are actually, as 100x traders, requiring the most acute amount of accuracy. So think back to our example. We had the 5 meters and we shot once. So this can never be 100x. The second hit can also never be 100x, even though it hits slightly. It can never be 100x. So imagine this is a daily or a 4-hour. This is an hour or a 4-hour. And then the next target, if the moose was right here, and that next target you hit right here, right, or close to it, or here, or anywhere between the two arches of the M's. That's a pretty goddamn good bullseye. Like, no matter what, that's a pretty good bullseye. That's our third strike, right? So this is like daily 4. This is 4 or 1 hour. This is 15 or 5, right? Like, there's a 15 or 5-minute time frame. But understand that using the larger ranges is almost like using the 37-meter math example. As to where using the 5-meter math example, this is perfectly acceptable for 100x trading. If we are trying to go for these big swing targets, bottom of the range to the top of the range, how can we ever accurately hit that target? Now, as we get better as traders, we understand the mapping process better. But in order to get that 37 meters, so let's say that perfect target, that moose, was 51 meters and 37 landed right here, right? 37 lands right here. And your original target is out here. Maybe this is 51 meters away. We can actually get to this 51 meters from here on a first strike, but it takes a lot of mapping, a lot of error reduction, and a lot of refinement of how we do things. As a starting point, you need to, and this goes in all areas of life, by the way. Think of anything anybody ever does in this group where you're thinking of trying something new. Stop shooting for the stars. Start making small adjustments that give you closer to perfection every time, so that your second shot, you get better. And then your third shot is here. And eventually you'll be able to take your first shot like this, right? But that happens when our mind is able to map properly, because through the mathematics of the way we interpret our models in our brain, through refining them, through reducing errors, we get better and better at it. So over time, by reducing the errors we see here, we will get better at getting closer to our target every single time. So this is about reducing errors, right? So I think of this as, this is overshooting your ranges. How can you use 100x that requires such high accuracy on a model that has so much room for error? How can you? It's impossible. Instead, can't we take these targets of seeing the higher pieces and just see where a bullet lands? Just make a small, tiny trade somewhere. And that trade could be anything from low leverage with, well, I mean, low leverage would be your preferred bet, because if you up the leverage, you're adjusting your accuracy. Or you could just say a lower amount of money to reduce the risk. We don't think reducing the risk actually gives you a higher quality of trades. I just think it diminishes the blow. I think you're just your two cognitive systems, the one that's constantly trying to refine the way your mind sees things, and the other cognitive system that's always analyzing the world and mapping it. I think you're just only firing on one or the other. They have to work in symbiosis. You have to map something while constantly refining it. And this is the process of learning. We learn by reducing errors in life. So what we need to do is we need to learn how to chart better, and we learn how to chart better by reducing our errors. And we can control how errors happen by reducing leverage. So a model that is this far away that we've never seen before or that we're unsure of, we need to reduce leverage to learn about it. So both our cognitive functions of mapping and error reduction through mathematics can fire at the same time. Therefore, you are mapping your cognitive functions to be more efficient through the mathematics of which we massage that information. So we can reduce leverage on bigger ranges, which will reward us as opposed to punishing us. And then as we get into smaller ranges, then we can up the leverage. So the smaller this range can be, the smaller these internal ranges can be. And as they go from, smaller to even smaller, which was down here, we can up our leverage. So this is how we learn how to become better traders. We reduce the errors by adjusting the amount of leverage. And by adjusting the amount of leverage, we will not get punished for taking shots. So if we take a shot 37 meters out, by reducing the leverage, we are also getting closer to the target. So all of a sudden it looks like this. Your 37 meters is here. The moose is here. The moose is here at, let's make that a little more clear. The moose is here. This is 51 meters out. And you have a shot that's 37 meters, is about approximately here. Missed your target completely. Well, you know how you do that? You adjust leverage, which is doing this. By adjusting leverage, you can get closer to your target. Well, adjust leverage more. You were too far from your target. So now we can adjust leverage more. All of a sudden we have a bullseye because maybe this was 100x. This was 50x or 40x. This might have been 25x. Maybe this is 5x right here. But look how close we got to the target. We got a perfect trade because we reduced leverage by adjusting not the amount that we used, because the amount would just do this. The amount would just it would just adjust the box this way. It wouldn't actually take it and shift it closer to our target, right? So if we adjust the amount of leverage, that's the first part of this, is by adjusting the amount of leverage, we can get closer to having good trades with less errors. And you see it all the time. Look, here's a trade that would have been liquidation on 100x. Any other leverage, it would have been a perfect trade. It would have been a home run. Now you've reduced an error. Now you've learned that that's something you can do better. So you see, by constantly reducing the errors in our trade, we are increasing the accuracy. But not only are we increasing the accuracy, that's great. We're getting better trades, higher quality. These are great things. So the outcome is achieved. But the more important piece is your mind is learning how to map out those errors. It's learning how to reduce those errors at a fundamental level, because both your cognitive functions are firing at the same time. The ability to map an outcome while also using mathematics to aim at your targets properly. This reduces errors. This is the quote unquote process of how to learn. So if you look up how the human mind learns, it learns through error reduction. So the human mind gets better and stronger by reducing errors. Everything in life, from the time we're a baby, our world is mapped in our mind and we are filling in blanks. If we start taking out some of those errors, guess what you just done? You learned how, or you were able to learn better. You are able to learn more. If you can never reduce errors, this is to never advance in life. This is to never learn better. The idea of reducing errors is to be a great poet of knowledge, or a great artifact in the world, or somebody who's a knowledge passer or a truth seeker. By reducing errors, you become those things.